Hello, my name is Rachel Page, and my presentation is going to be about understanding our multiracial youth. I chose this topic because in my teaching career, I have worked with many immigrant youth and multiracial youth, and multiracial individuals are also in my family. So I've witnessed a lot of issues discussed in Chapter 8. Chapter 8 also discusses how we, as teachers and counselors, can help these individuals with many different methods. So I was excited to better prepare myself for different situations that may arise. An overview of what we're going to be talking about today is who are multiracial youth, interracial marriage laws, immigrant youth and families, a few key phrases that we as counselors need to know, ethnic identity and self-esteem, education and career goals, approaches to prevention, and intervention strategies. Who are our multiracial youth? More than 7 million people in the United States identify as being more than one race. The U.S. Census Bureau is now projecting that minorities will outnumber white people of European descent in the United States by the year 2042. As late as 1945, over half of the states in the United States had active laws that banned interracial marriage. Only in 1967 did the Supreme Court formally ban states from prohibiting interracial marriage. The stigma attached to the families becomes a silent barrier for the couple and their children as they attempt to establish their place in the American social order. But back in 2000, Alabama became the last state in the country to overturn its ban on interracial marriage. Immigrant youth and families. Immigrant families and youth experience physical, social, and cultural disorders. In addition to the issues of identity faced by racial and ethnic minority youth, one or more family members may be an immigrant to the United States. U.S. immigrants represent a large number of school-aged children and youth. Of these, those with Asian and Hispanic backgrounds represent the largest groups of recent immigrants. A key word that I learned while doing this presentation was acculturation. Acculturation is a socialization process that involves adapting to new culture as a result of changes in cultural attitudes, values, and behaviors. Acculturation requires the immigrant to negotiate this transition to improve his or her life conditions in a manner that is congruous with the new environment. For example, we had a student who was a Chinese immigrant who had gone to American schools and will now attend an American college. She spends her time primarily with her American friends, dresses as they do, and shares their values and interests. She has become highly acculturated into American culture. Acculturation considerations. The youth may experience isolation or rejection from peers. Stereotypes of multiracial and immigrant individuals may negatively affect how others view that youth. So, counseling for the youth must be prudently planned. When trust and comfort are established, more sensitive issues may be gradually introduced. Self-concept, racial identity, sexuality, and peer relationships are all areas of potential exploration. Another key word that ties into immigrant youth is assimilation. Assimilation describes those people who do not desire to maintain their cultural identities and instead identify and associate with the new environmental culture. From 1890 to 1920, the United States saw an influx of many immigrants from European and Asian countries. The longer those immigrants stayed in the United States, the more likely they were to assimilate to its culture. Ethnic identity and self-esteem. Cultures vary in their orientation towards identity. Some cultural groups value independence and emphasize individualism. whereas other cultures place identity clearly within the family constellation. The minority youth who is at odds with dominant cultural values may have difficulty in balancing the need to be seen as an individual against the value to place the family above self. Physical beauty and gender roles are often defined within ethnic and cultural values and beliefs. Especially for female minority youth, pressure to emulate white women's norms of beauty can result in these girls viewing their diverse cultural gender identities from a deficient perspective. Education and career goals. Without the opportunity to create a vision for the future in which education is relevant to career path and financial rewards, the minority youth is left to repeat educational and career choices that lead to employment in low statuses, low payment, and racially stereotypical occupations. Approaches to prevention. Individual. Counselors must develop prevention and intervention efforts that take into account the developmental level of the youth, language, learning style, cultural considerations, and the appropriateness of the method for the particular problem. Approaches to prevention. Family. Because of the impact of factors within the home on a child's identity development, prevention efforts focused on involving parents and families are critical. The counselor can begin the task of facilitating a narrative that integrates both parents' racial and ethnic parenting styles and rituals into the newly formed family. Also, having open conversations about different things and different issues can get to the root of any problem. Approaches to prevention. School. School-based programs have the opportunity to address multiple risks factors in youth, families, and schools, as well as build links between these three areas. School-based programs are more accessible to families and can potentially avoid the stigma associated with services offered in traditional mental health settings. School-based programs also remove some of the practical and social barriers to treatment access, such as lack of transportation or financial resources. Some other approaches to prevention in schools is comprehensive preschools, compensatory programs, and before and after school programs. Some other protective factors for racially diverse youth include providing teachers and parents with resources such as reading lists to help families understand biracial issues, inviting multiracial community role models as speakers, and creating an open dialogue among students, teachers, and administrators on the value of cultural diversity. Intervention strategies. Prevention efforts strengthens existing support for families in the school and in community organizations that work with the schools. Empowering young people and helping them to develop plans for social action is a preventative approach to treatment. The target here is not individuals or even groups of individuals, but the norms, structures, and practices of organizations, communities, society, and the nation. Intervention strategies. Although particular techniques for interventions may vary in response to the ages of the youth or the presenting problem, the counselor-client relationship should be vibrant, characterized by a shared definition of the problem. The counselor should remain sensitive to the multiracial context of what otherwise may appear to be a generalized adolescent problem, while not assuming that every issue is one of racial identity. For example, name-calling, targeting the youth's racial identity. Intervention strategies. Addressing the intersections of gender, class, race, and culture allows counselors to explore psychosocial identity formations. If counselors acknowledge the role of racial identity, including how race serves to maintain or exacerbate the problems, youth have an opportunity to examine internalized messages and determine options for change. Intervention strategies. When a counselor teaches youth how to advocate for themselves and how to enact positive social change strategies to advance acceptance of themselves and others like them, it can be a powerful intervention that enhances self-efficacy and thus self-esteem, and it can broaden youth's knowledge of and sensitivity to issues specific to multiracial experiences. Finally, I would like to share a quote by Maya Angelou, who is one of my favorite authors. It says, "Perhaps travel cannot prevent bigotry, but by demonstrating that all people cry, laugh, eat, worry, and die, it can introduce the idea that if we try and understand each other, we may even become friends." I want to thank you all for joining me today during this presentation, so please comment below and have a great day.